Welcome back. Happy 2026, because this is my first podcast episode of the new year, and we have a midterm election coming up. So it's a very special honor to have East Brunswick, New Jersey Mayor and Democratic candidate for the 12th Congressional District in our state, Brad Cohen here. Thank you for joining us, Mayor.
Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, of course. It's a pleasure to have you. So I might have some listeners who are from New Jersey, or they may not be from New Jersey, but I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your community and also your district and what you've done in the public in your years of public service.
Sure. Well, first of all, before I even answer that question, I would say that if it was as little as about 15, 16 years ago, I would never have imagined even having this discussion or even being in public service. I was a happy-go-lucky, and I'm still happy-go-lucky. But my life was basically medicine. I'm a physician. Went to medical school years ago. I'm an OBGYN, so I've been dealing with women's health care issues for my entire career. So like I said, it had been this time of day 15, 16 years ago, you probably would have either seen me in my office or in the OR taking care of patients. And that was all that really concerned me besides my family and obligations that I had at home. But my practice was most of my life. And I think the impetus or the driving factor that got me to really consider any type of public service was the Christie tax cuts that took place when he became governor. That we were in the middle of a recession, as most of you remember, and he made pretty bad cuts to public schools. The NJEA and teachers was his enemy. If remember, most folks who remember that was a big deal. He thought there was a lot of wasted money in public education. And it was those cuts have deep impacts when it comes to school districts like ours in East Brunswick, which are well known for their quality. And I didn't want those cuts to be reflected in things that hurt kids. And that's often what ends up happening when school budgets are affected. A lot of times, the first thing people will do is affect some of these really good programs that do cost money, and it affects the children. And then the parents get all upset and they start writing and complaining and going to school board meetings. And then the school board will say, well, there's no other, if we cut this, if we don't cut it, then the taxes go up, and parents will give in and say, okay, then, we want these programs, we'll pay for it. And that's always been sort of that same um, type of scenario in school district to dual school district in New Jersey over time. And it's one of the reasons that we have these ballooning costs of education. And I didn't want to make those. I thought there were other ways you could provide services to your children and make sure your teachers are paid appropriately and fairly without cutting those things. And so I ran for a school board position. I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea that you need to actually have a tagline at the bottom of a sign. I didn't know that you can't put signs near schools. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I just did what I thought was right. And end of the day, I ended up winning and spent 6.5 years on the school board. Did a lot of good there along with the colleagues of mine that were on the school board, but that also put me in the public eye and gave me an opportunity to take a spotlight look and bird's eye look at what was going on in the township, where they had kind of lost sense and vision for what to do with our most important business corridor. And just like the schools were getting cuts, if you're not getting money coming in from your business corridor in town, then the only place to make up the difference is property taxes. And we're a mostly residential town. So I put together an entire vision plan to how to renovate and redevelop the Route 18 corridor. And the Democratic Party really was impressed and supported me and therefore ran me as a candidate for mayor on that platform. And I won. And that is what I've done the last 10 years, among many other things. But if anybody's driven up and down the corridor in the last couple of years, you could see that while it takes time to plant the seeds in the ground, but now they're starting to pop up and people are seeing and getting a real good idea what that vision was a while ago. And it's making a difference. We've not raised property taxes on the municipal side more than 1% in 10 years being mayor. This year it's going to go up a little more just because of all of this structural issues that are affecting all towns, just like your home, right? Gas costs, fuel costs, healthcare costs, energy costs, they're all up in double digits. So to keep it under 1% is a little harder this year, but we're still under 3%, which is pretty darn good. So I think there is a message in all of that, and that is that what we've done in the township here is something that can be imported to the greater congressional district in a way that keeps people with all the services and the things that they want, supporting the industries that are here, growing them, and and providing voters and someone who has a resume to make this stuff actually happen.
That's so true. And I think it's very important that people realize that sometimes the best representatives are not people who were have always been in front of a camera, but people who have always been behind the scenes doing all that planning, with the school boards and with, as you were saying, the Route 18 corridor. Because I think we have so many people in Congress who just want to be in front of a camera all the time, and that's not you. I mean, I know that firsthand. But it's really interesting how you brought up how Governor Christie was sort of uh, one of the reasons why you got into public service, and not because you agreed with what he was doing, but I almost see some parallels, not completely, between the current administration and Chris Christie, in terms of somewhat overwhelming support. Although in Trump's case, it was he won the popular vote first time for Republican in 20 years. But
Mhm.
during the second term, it almost seemed like the approval just sort of dipped, and I think that we're seeing a little bit of that now. So
Are
what
you thinking about the federal government?
the
Uh,
federal government, kind of like how Christie, because I remember the Christie years very well. He talked a good game. He beat a very unpopular Democratic incumbent, and then after he won re-election, people started to get the ick.
well, I think in Christie's case, his attention diverted to running for president, so he was out of the state more than he was in the state. And and I do think that uh, he kind of left his eye off of the most important things that were going on in the state because he had higher aspirations, and that affected his ratings and what happened in the state. Uh, but I think Trump's a little bit of a different story right now. Than Christie, and a lot of his problems he has, in my opinion, created himself. Uh, but uh, but as far as the guy that wants to be in front of the camera, um, look, I mean, we're all of us who are in politics need to be able to get in front of the camera to get your message out. So you have to be able to do that. But if you're spending your time in what I call performative politics, where you're just trying to get clicks, which is unfortunately how a lot of people are getting their information. They don't have attention spans more than 30 seconds, and people need to get out there in front of their faces and create stories. I'm less interested in that. I'll do what I have to, but I'm a problem solver. It's kind of how I'm wired as a doctor, right? As a surgeon, I am not looking at your tumor for the next 6 years. I'm not going to sit and take pictures of it. And I'm just taking it out. I'm fixing it. I'm
Mhm.
making it better. And I don't have really any patience for any of that other stuff. It really doesn't it doesn't it doesn't solve problems for people. It just makes for good um, you know, uh, ratings. I'm not interested in that. If I go to Congress and I'm lucky enough to be there, I want to fix the problems that are mattering to people in my district and in this country the most. And I'm not interested in getting there to be part of a majority who's going to spend the entire time making the other side look bad, or be part of the group that has the other side who's the majority trying to make us look bad. That is not what people want. You may see that in the extremes of parties where all they care about is making the other guy look bad. I'm just not interested in that. Let it it's like how you raise your kids. You got to pick your battles. There's certain things in life that are you just have to stick to your guns on. They're just so part of you and they're so important to you that those are the ones that you raise and sink the flag in when you win. The others are areas where you need to see compromise and try to make progress and move the ball forward. And if you move it a little bit, then you need to be ready to go back in the future and move it a little bit more. But not moving it at all is just wasting time, precious time, in a place where, look, I think Congress has what, an 11% approval rating right now? They've earned that. They're not doing what the people of this country have elected them to do. And I think most people see it that way.
Well, this question is twofold. If I were to knock on some doors, I don't care what party it's with, and I spoke to some Republicans, unaffiliated, Democrat, even some Greens or Libertarians, and I asked them, where is Congress or where is Washington falling short? What do you think they would tell me?
I think they've lost sight of what their role is. Congress and people get all upset. It's elected every 2 years. You always have to worry about reelecting. When you get elected, you got to start your reelection. That's true. But the founding fathers set it up that way because Congress was supposed to be the most representative branch of government. By electing people every 2 years and having to appeal to the people who they represent, that makes them the closest body in elected office to the actual ground swell of people that they came from. So if you're a congressperson, then I'm sorry. Yes, you are going to have to run every other year. When you're tired of doing it, that fortunately, I'm sure there's other people out there that will take the role from you. And if you don't want to do it any longer, that's what you should do. If you're too tired of doing it, if you're doing it too long and you're not, you don't have the energy and the desire in your belly to keep going, then you should move on and let someone else do it. But if you're doing it already, that's the role they have. And damn it, do what people have elected you to do. Represent them. And I don't ask when people call me up and have a question about something go on in town. Did you vote for me? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? I don't care. Once I'm mayor, I'm mayor. I'm mayor for everybody. If you're the representative, you're representative for everybody. So just do the job. The rest should follow.
Right. So, what do you think are the biggest issues that are facing your district? And tell people about your district a little bit geographically and just in terms of culture, because there are a lot of people who don't know too much about Central Jersey. I spent most of my childhood in South Brunswick, which is definitely your district, but
Yes. Yeah, I mean, New Jersey is by far one of the most diverse states in the country. Middlesex County is one of the most diverse counties in New Jersey. And so we're in the most diverse county in the most diverse state in the most, in the country. So if you look at the congressional 12th district, it really includes about 42% Middlesex, towns like North Brunswick and South Brunswick, East Brunswick, Monroe, South River, Spotswood, Plainsboro, Cranberry, Jamesburg, Helmetta. I don't think I left anybody out. I don't want anybody getting mad if I left them out. Um, then it's about little under 30%, I think, Mercer, which includes towns like West Windsor, Princeton, Hopewell, Ewing, Trenton. Uh, and then it goes all the way into Somerset with places like Franklin, um, uh, Montgomery, parts of Hillsborough, Bound Brook, North Plainfield and the city of Plainfield. So it's a very diverse district. There's diversity in cultures and religions, in ethnic groups. There's diversity in age. There's diversity in income levels. There's diversity in virtually anything that you could think of. It's all here. And one of the key aspects I think of our district is our life science corridor that basically dubs the Route 1 corridor the Einstein Alley. There are arguably the most amount of life science companies from cell and gene research to pharmacy, and pharmacology, personal care products, photonics, all the industries that supply those industries, all the industries that feed from those industries. They all are arguably we could be called the Silicon Valley of the East Coast in just life science companies. And they don't move here because it's so cheap to live here. Like that's not the reason they're moving here. Arguably, the only other area on the East Coast that boasts as many companies as we do would be Boston, and that's more expensive to live than here. So
Mhm.
it's not because of the cost of the real estate or the cost of housing. It's because the workforce is here. That's what these companies they'd sooner pay the higher rent than to have to schlep somebody from another part of the country and have to bring them here to Central Jersey. We already have this here. So those industries are being challenged right now by the Trump White House. They're attacking science, they're attacking education, they're attacking research. They're not allowing or putting a difficulty for immigration, so people with H-1 visas can't come here. But these are individuals that have the talent that could fuel and support those industries. So we're not allowing the talent in. We don't want to train it. We don't believe in science. We don't believe in vaccines. And if we keep letting that happen, this most important economic driver to our congressional district, these are people that could afford to just leave, go somewhere else. And once those industries are gone, it's going to be very hard to get them back. And all of the foot traffic, the industries that are benefiting from that, hotel and beverage and hospitality and the building industry and all of these other industry, education, all of them start to suffer if that happens. So I think more than any other district, this is something whoever takes over this district must keep their eye on. I think we're also dealing with an attack on democracy right now, where women's rights are being attacked. I'm a gynecologist. I've spent decades now taking care of the healthcare needs of women. Women today have less rights than when I started practice decades ago. That's unconscionable. There's people who had parents, grandparents that sat on lines, picket lines to make sure that women had rights that now are being taken away from them. LGBTQ rights, the rights of civil rights, voting rights. All of these, I feel every time I turn around or read something in the paper or social media is being attacked by a by the right, and we fought for those rights.
Mhm.
Um, Due process, the way ICE is treating people, the way people or immigrants are treated in this country, which is a country built on immigration. This is not who we are as Americans. It's just not. And this voice of reason needs to be injected back into Congress. The vast majority of people in this country don't agree with that direction, and that we need a course direction. So that's an important issue. Healthcare. It is rapidly spinning out of control. It is on a death spiral in terms of finance. It's not fair. So there's not an even distribution of access to people. There's racial discrimination in the research and in a lot of the drugs that we provide and access issues for people, all based on zip code. Uh, so there are other ways of looking at how we fund healthcare. We don't have a healthcare problem, we have a health access problem. That should be solvable with brighter minds who could sit down and figure out a fair way to make sure that if you're an American citizen, you have a right to a basic level of health care coverage so that when and if, God forbid, you get sick or hurt or injured or you need surgery or like there's a level playing field for all of us, and it shouldn't be based on your income or what job you got. I've had patients that have to decide on medications or doing surgeries because either their deductible is so high or this medicine is a tier 4 and it's not covered and I've had to sit on the phone and argue with insurance companies and their doctors that represent them in ways that people in Congress have never had to do because they don't do what I do. So it means something different to me because I know exactly what some of these problems are, and they're fixable. We just need to be able to sit down and figure out a fairer way of providing something that most of us should not have to think is anything other than a right as a citizen to a basic level of coverage. Most other industrialized countries have figured out how to do this.
Right. Well, Doc Martin Luther King said that healthcare was the most unequal system in the United States. And as you've stated from your time as a physician or gynecologist,
Yeah.
that you have had to argue with the insurance companies. And I feel like that this healthcare issue is something that is not being spoken about enough by a lot of other congressional Democrats because that's one of the big issues that got Nancy Pelosi the gavel back in the 2018 election. And you have a very unique position, especially representing a district where there are quite a few hospitals in Princeton, I think in Trenton, nearby in New Brunswick, not technically your district, but not too far away.
Right.
And I mean, New Brunswick is basically becoming like a healthcare capital in the country to some extent. And I'm sure that that is already benefiting a lot of people in your
Well,
district.
that's also being aided by the fact that something like the Helix, as you know, which is being built in New Brunswick. So that's a massive project that's going to be bringing the medical school on site. They're going to have research and incubator space there. Nokia's moving in there. So, this Central Jersey region is becoming a healthcare center, not only of New Jersey, but of the region. Research that's coming out of here. There are fascinating like cell and gene research and individualized care that's being developed here in New Jersey. And one of the reasons they choose it, and especially our Route 1 corridor, is because it has so much access very quickly to airports, to major highways, so that it's a last point of service to be able to get a lot of these very personalized treatments directly to patients. We are so uniquely located in such a incredibly lucky spot to have these things. And yet, um, if you look at the big, beautiful bill, which is big, it's not beautiful. These are things that are going to be attacked, and people may not feel it right now because a lot of these things don't go to effect until after the midterm elections. But they are absolutely going to affect some of the things that we do here and the things that I think are making us unique. They should be preserved, encouraged, grown. I want more of those companies to come here. I want incubators that are developing in places like New Brunswick and North Brunswick and in Princeton and West Windsor. We've got that. Those companies, as they start to grow, need to have a space to go. I don't want them to leave the area or leave the country. I want them to stay here.
Right.
We can make that happen.
What is your biggest concern? I mean, there are many concerns, but what's your biggest concern about the big, beautiful bill? And is there any way, if the Democrats do take control of the House and maybe even the Senate, to push back on some of the cuts that were made?
Well, I think the first one, as we were on the topic of healthcare, is a major cut to Medicaid, right? And that's really funding the healthcare needs of a very significant but portion of our population that often ends up having no other option but to run into emergency rooms and get the level of care that ends up costing significantly more money and time than you could have if they just had access uh, to care at a simpler primary care level. So that is definitely on the chopping block and needs to be corrected. It also funds lots of programs for people that are in special needs, which, yeah, we want to take care of all of our community. Special needs community is a large and important portion of our community. We can't turn our backs on them. We've made, in fact, tremendous strides for lots of people in those communities that could, in many instances, live somewhat semi-independent lives. We can't have achieved this much only to, roll the whole car backwards. It's not fair to folks. And I've always believed that as a Democrat, that our role is to look out for those that can't advocate for themselves. That's our primary function. So when it comes to a lot of the cuts that you're seeing being made, it's going to uh, adversely affect those people who are in the greatest need and those in the income levels that are struggling to begin with. And that's just un-American.
Right. And there will be no lucky states as far as this big, beautiful bill, but other states are going to have it so much worse than New Jersey. Like I'm,
And definitely underserved areas. And don't start to think that there aren't underserved areas and disparities in how we deliver healthcare, even in New Jersey.
right,
Absolutely exists here. The couple of years ago, the last maternity hospital in Cape May County closed.
right, yep,
If you're in Cape May County and pregnant, you're not delivering there.
yeah.
Uh, which people say, oh my God, how could that be in New Jersey? Yeah, that's
They,
happening.
yeah, they literally just d delivered a baby on the Parkway because a couple from Cape May had to go to Somers Point. I used to live in South Jersey, so Cape May is a small county, but they need to have some hospital there, especially with short traffic. I mean, if God forbid you go into labor,
Right. And what if there was a complication? Maybe that was she was lucky and it ended up being a pretty easy delivery and everything worked out well, which it does most of the time. But it could not.
mm,
And that's where your ability to get to a level of care that we should expect in this country, in this state, is compromised. And then the same thing even in underserved communities or urban communities where getting to folks and getting them access to care. That was a problem when I went to medical school. It's still a problem. It's still not up until a few years ago. New Jersey had one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country.
mhm,
That's I tell people that and they say, no, that can't be New Jersey. Yeah, it was. We've made progress, but this is New Jersey. We should hardly have that issue at all. And
right.
the reason we have it is because there's differences and discrepancies. It's mostly in communities where it's lower income and harder for people to get access to care, or they're afraid of the healthcare system, or there's barriers to getting into the healthcare system. And we've been talking about that honestly for decades. It's time to fix that.
Right. And I've told people this. We have more segregation in New Jersey than almost anywhere in the South. Our prisons are way more segregated than Alabama prisons. And a lot of people up here either don't like to acknowledge it or just don't know it. But it is, in fact, the case. And I'm sure that plays a significant role in these healthcare discrepancies that
Yeah,
you're
nothing's, I call it silos. A lot of times what you see in government is that when we want to solve a problem, we send you to a department. So we'll send you your housing to the housing department and your healthcare needs to the Health and Human Service department and your education to the Department of Education department. Oh, you want a labor? Oh, that goes to the Department of Labor. They don't talk to one another and they don't really, work in conjunction to solve people's problems. Nobody really ever has one problem. It's usually sort of a if you're already in that issue area, you have problems that they tend to overlap like concentric circles. So if you want to solve them, you need to have a holistic approach where those departments work together. And we could do that in the state. We could do that federally. It's just so difficult. But we need to make recognition that in order to solve people's problems, it's never one place that you're going to go. And when you make them have to go to multiple places, they drop out. The system is too complicated and the red tape just makes people it just makes them easier to give up. We could fix that.
right. So I want to know, with the few minutes that we have left, what would be some of your top issues and maybe some caucuses that you would join in Congress, some bills that you'd like to sign on to, maybe help craft?
So I think that in keeping with what we were already talking about, I think and I would love to be as part of a working group to develop some universal healthcare plan that we can employ for the entire country. I think it's long overdue. We've dabbled with it in Obamacare, and it was a huge success in terms of getting people off of the rolls of uninsured. But we need to take it further, not roll it backwards. So that would be a major area that I would want to be concerned with. I think The other areas right now have to do with making life more affordable for people that live not only in New Jersey, but as a congressional district, I would be obviously most concerned about mine. But I think that there's a tremendous issue with the wealth gap that we have in this country right now, and it has never been this wide, other than when we broke up the trusts back in the 1800s. We're back to that difference and discrepancy in wealth. And I think if those that are at the top of the pyramids who have done stratospherically well under Trump first term and now even in the first year of his second term, they were just paying a fairer share. We could fund things like universal child care. We could fund some sort of grants for people to go to college so they don't end up with strapping debt. Maybe help those that are dealing with strapping debt right now. Help people buy that first house with either a down payment or reduced interest rates so that they could get into their first home and start to establish some kind of generational wealth. This is how you help young people become um, into the system in a way where they can feel like they've got a shot at the American dream. It's not democratic socialism, it's just fairness. It's just fairness. And these are the things that I think would make life a little bit better. If there's a couple that basically has to decide between how much money they're spending on childcare and whether or not one of the couple is even going to work, that's hindering them from buying a house, buying a car, moving ahead in life. That's why these things actually matter. And I think we can all put our heads together in a way that I think a lot of the banks did very well during all of the recessions that we had. And when they were struggling, the American consumer taxpayers through our government helped bail them out. Well, now folks are struggling. Banks are doing quite well. Maybe it's time for them to be part of the solution and give back in a way that helps for first-time buyers to get low interest loans or down payment money towards getting into a home. I think that's fairness. So basically, I think there's a lot that we could be doing to help make life more affordable for people. And it has nothing to do with what political party you belong to, right? Trump won back in 24 on a message of affordability. Mamdani won in 25 on a message of affordability. And they couldn't be more different in their views of the world and their politics. Yet they both won on that issue, and nobody is really addressing it.
Right. And that also includes a lot of not you, but a lot of candidates who are currently running in other districts are not focused on the issue of affordability either. It seems to be more of the sensationalism that we were discussing earlier. Sometimes topics are addressed, but like Clinton said, it's the economy is stupid.
So yeah, people really care right now when you poll them, or you really don't have to do a poll. I see patients all the time. They tell me, you just walk the streets. They tell you their energy bills are up, their healthcare bills are up, their fuel bills are up, their childcare bills are up. I mean, their income isn't going up at the same rate as all of those other costs. So they're falling behind. We have
Right.
a generation of people that truly believe today that they will not live the lifestyle that their parents lived. They will not have the opportunities that their parents had. And most of us who have kids don't believe our kids are going to have the same opportunities that we had. That has never happened in this country. We have to fix that.
I couldn't agree more, especially as someone who's 29 years old. I see a lot of my peers just seem very hopeless, and a lot of them don't even think to vote because they think same old, same old. There's almost a level of apathy there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where that's happening, but you could either, bitch and moan all day long, or you could be spending time trying to advocate for your issues and make sure that the people that you elect really are serious about helping you, and hold them to it.
Right.
People have asked me in the past about term limits. What do you think about that? People there forever and they're not really. I don't. I think that's a cop out. I think it's a cop out to the voter to just say, "Oh, you've been there X number of years, now you're out." I've been in government now for a while. I see some people who have been there for 5 minutes and it's 5 minutes too long. And I've seen people that have been there for many years and they're still active, involved, and contributing back and doing what they were elected there to do, and they're phenomenal public servants. So I think it's a cop out to say, oh, you hit X number of years, you're done. I think it's taking the pressure off of voters to actually keep tabs on their elected officials and make sure that they know which ones are representing them and doing a good job and continuing to support those and those that aren't and look for replacements.
Well, the term limit issue is always red meat during the campaign, and all of a sudden, when people get in, suddenly they have amnesia. And honestly, I don't support term limits. I think if you're doing a fine job, keep going.
Yeah, but that means it's a voter's responsibility to to hold their elected officials to the promises that they made.
Right. It's always been in their power. You've always had the power to send your representative back home.
It's like
To
don't
paraphrase Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
click your heels 3 times. You've always had the power to go home if you wanted to.
That didn't work when I was at a job I didn't like, but that's another story. So we only have a minute left. Is there a website that people can go to check out your campaign?
It's Brad Cohen for Congress, so easy to find online. And there's going to be all information on there on how to get involved, whether it's as a volunteer, making phone calls, chasing votes, putting lawn signs out, and information on where I stand on and the most important issues that I'm running on. So I think those are probably covered here as well in this podcast, but I think it can't be overemphasized how important this midterm election is this year.
So true. All right. Well, thank you very much.
All righty. Thanks, Evan. All right.